What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over what the most rare sprite in Fortnite does and whether or not it is worth using this. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, comment down below what you think of the Grim Reaper Sprite and if you've been able to find it, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything. It is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So, like I just said, we're going to be talking about the Grim Reaper Sprite in this video because it definitely feels like the most rare sprite. Obviously, it's between this and the 0 point sprite, but the 0 point has been out for longer. So I know many of you probably haven't gotten to use this sprite yet, and even if you have found it and mastered it, you probably don't bring it in very much. What the Grim Reaper Sprite does is it marks enemy players that damage you, and how long the enemy player is marked increases with the level of each of the sprite. So if you're at like level 5 max level, that's going to be the longest mark you get on enemy players who damage you. And so the obvious benefit or like use case for this is going to be if you're getting shot at by a player that you don't know the location of, having them marked will make it easier to figure out where they are and then allow you to kind of play accordingly. And this sounds really good on paper, but I feel like this is actually pretty rarely that useful in that situation because of how this season plays. If someone catches you off guard with something like the Ranger pistol and starts to damage you, this would maybe help you find them, but at that point it's probably too late. You're gonna have to like use mobility and just get out of there or something, you know. And then the same is going to be true of the hunting rifle. If they, you know, body shot you, then sure, maybe this helps you figure out where they were hiding or where they were at, and then maybe it changes how you play. But if you get headshot sniped, you're dead. It didn't matter that that enemy, you know, caught you off guard. Just in general, with how fast the time to kill this is this season, if you get caught off guard and surprised by someone, there's a pretty decent chance that's just the end of the match. And a lot of times you can get caught off guard and surprised by people that are basically right on top of you because of the audio changes with the overdrive nades, shockwave grenades, and then things like the shock rocks as well. There's a lot of times where you might have pretty much zero clue there's an enemy about to be on you, damaging you, and you know, it's GG's. If you're having like somewhat of a mid-range fight where you're not quite sure where somebody is or where someone's shooting you at from, you know, it would be helpful there. But I feel like a lot of times if somebody catches you off guard, they're going to pounce on you and eliminate you pretty quick. Or if they're third-partying you from a distance, they're going to be on you pretty quick. My main hope with this sprite was just that it would be useful in situations where, you know, you're fighting an enemy and then that enemy tries to flee or tries to get away, because that is something that happens, you know, pretty frequently, especially this season. Like if you and an enemy trade some amount of damage and then they try to run away, you would have the mark on them at that point. And it does help them with this, or it does help with this, but the duration of the mark, even at level 5, doesn't feel that amazingly helpful here. I feel like if the mark lasted a good amount of time and then somebody was like running from you and you were trying to chase them and continue having that fight happen because you got the better of them initially, having that mark would be really good for hunting those players down who are trying to run away. And even at level 5, the duration of the mark isn't so long that it really helps with this type of scenario. If they break line of sight, then you probably lost them because the mark is going to be leaving soon. If you are fighting around cover or in a building or something like that, and you get the mark on an enemy, it could definitely be helpful there because it makes it a little bit easier for you to predict the enemy's next move. Or, you know, once you get that essential wall hack on them, you know, you can tell what item they have out. If they're using heals, you can tell what they're doing based on the silhouette of their character. So if you're fighting in a situation where you and an enemy are actively trading damage, but they're not leaving, you still get like that information on like what their next move might be, and that could help you predict and outplay them. The main kind of situation that I found this to be most helpful is going to be whenever enemies are in bushes, because if an enemy is in a bush shooting at you, at times you might be able to tell where they are just by looking at where the bullets are coming from. But if they damage you and you have this mark on them, it's going to be really easy for you to turn that fight, or at least much easier for you to turn that fight than it would otherwise be. It kind of makes it bad for them to shoot at you if they're in a bush, and a lot of times they won't be able to tell that until it's too late. Or if you and an enemy are actively fighting in a bush, those fights can be kind of awkward. Like maybe you were in the bush and the enemy jumps in to fight you. If they've damaged you at all before getting in, then you have that mark on them, and it just makes it much easier to see in the bush. Especially if you're a console player, these fights can be absolutely dreadful and very difficult to play. And if they've damaged you at all and you have this Reaper Sprite on, you will have the mark on them, and then that would make the fight a lot easier. So whether, you know, they're in the bush shooting you and it's like kind of a mid-range fight, or you are both actively fighting inside of a bush, I feel like the Grim Reaper Sprite actually really helps with those situations. anything involving bushes just gets a little bit easier once you're dealing with this, I think. The Ghost Sprite is going to be another time where this can be incredibly helpful, because the Ghost Sprite makes people invisible when they reload. And at times this can make the fight really confusing, and really awkward for you if you're fighting somebody and then they just go invisible and then you don't really know where they are anymore. But with the Grim Reaper Sprite, if they've damaged you, even if they're invisible, you'll still have that indicator on them, so you'll have a better clue of where they are. It still might be difficult for you to see them, and if you're a controller player, the Ghost Sprite does break aim assist, so you won't have aim assist on them while they're invisible. But dealing with the Ghost Sprite is another situation where this Grim Reaper Sprite can be pretty helpful. But those are kind of the main points, I think. In kind of stagnant medium range fights, if you and an enemy have traded shots, even if you actively know where they are, the Reaper Sprite can kind of help you in that situation, because it makes it a bit easier for you to predict their next move. Like if they are going to push you, or if they're trying to heal, or, trying to flank or something like that. In those stagnant, stalemate mid-range situations, it can be really helpful. But those type of fights aren't a fight I want to engage in typically ever in Fortnite. It just leaves you very susceptible to third parties, but especially this season, because those stagnant medium range fights, one, you have to deal with the hunting rifle, and the more you're peeking into a hunting rifle at medium range, the bigger of a problem that's going to be for you if you aren't using the hunting rifle. If you like sniping, then maybe you opt into those situations more. But if you're not using the sniper and you're using something like a ranger pistol at range versus a sniper, that's not a fight you want to like keep having or keep engaging in. And a lot of people run the hunting rifle this season, so most of the time that's what's going to happen. But like I touched on, the audio changes this season make getting caught off guard pretty easy. So if you're over focusing on a mid-range fight that really isn't going anywhere, you probably might just get hopped on by a player using mobility at some point. So I really don't want to be in those medium range fights, and that's where, or medium long range kind of stagnant fights, and that's where I feel like this Grim Reaper Sprite kind of shines most. The other situations where it really shines, like I said, are the bush fights, really good for those. The Ghost Sprite, really good for that. But overall, that makes it something that I don't know if I want to use my Sprite just for that situation. Also, in team game modes, anytime we're talking about anything that marks people, I feel like the value of it increases in team game modes, because it just makes it easier for your teammates to know where the enemies are, and for y'all to easily have more synergy or teamwork if you just, it's very obvious where the enemy is because they're marked for them. So in team game modes, I feel like the value of this rises, but still, I feel like the main situations it's good at is bushes and the Ghost Sprite. And that just, I don't know if I want to dedicate a Sprite to that. Other sprites that I think are good, obviously the boss Sprite getting that increased HP is just beneficial in every single type of engagement that you are ever in, especially with the prevalence of the hunting rifle. Being able to survive a headshot with the boss Sprite really helps. The Ghost Sprite is another one I really like, and again, you can use this in a variety of different ways in pretty much every engagement, whether you're pushing an enemy, trying to reset a fight, actively fighting in close range. There's so many different situations where the Ghost Sprite is helpful to you, and that is why I think the boss and the Ghost Sprite are the two best sprites so far this season. They just are helpful in pretty much every engagement, no matter what, and that's what makes them so good. A lot of the other sprites, while they do have benefits, it's mostly niche benefits or very specific scenarios, and maybe you want to dedicate a Sprite to that specific scenario, but more often than not, I would rather just use the one that's like pretty much always good. When it comes to this being the, one of the most rare sprites, it also is pretty expensive. If you want to buy the regular Reaper Sprite back, it's going to be 7,500 dust, and if you're buying back one of the variants like the Galaxy or Gummy or Gold, then it's 15,000, and that's also a pretty expensive cost for a Sprite that's mostly situational. There also is the potential kind of focused situation, like other players might see you have this and then they're more inclined to chase you or more inclined to focus you. Obviously, the most common situation you see discussed with this is going to be off spawn or in the early game. Other players might see you in the lobby and then try to land on you, but even throughout the course of the game, if an enemy sees you have this Sprite, they're probably going to fixate on you more and, be more inclined to chase you. And maybe that is something that helps you and that you play into to maybe use against that enemy. But for the most part, drawing attention to yourself with these special sprites, I feel like probably does more harm than good. And that might be another reason to not use it. But overall, I think it's good, not great, not the best. And I think that's a good spot for it. I know coming into this season, a lot of people were worried that like they might not be able to find the best sprites. And I think it's best for balance if the most rare sprites like the Grim Reaper and the 0 Point are mostly just special because they're, rare and not special because they're like the best thing in the game, because they are so difficult to find, or so, you know, unlikely to find. So the fact that this is like situationally good, but not universally the best sprite, I think is a good power level for it to have. But that is going to be it for this video. I just wanted to kind of show off the Grim Reaper Sprite, talk about what it does, talk about what it does well. I know a lot of people are still searching for it and really want to have it. And if you haven't gotten to play with it yet, you might be kind of confused, or not really confused, but you might not be entirely sure of what the value of this sprite is. And I think a lot of people tend to kind of overrate things in that situation because, you know, they really want it. So they also expect it to be really good. Good, not great. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.